She was stranded on the highway, her luxury SUV broken down under the blazing sun. He rode up on horseback, calloused hands offering help. She had no idea he was the same man her millionaire father had forced off his ranch years ago. This chance meeting would change everything. Before we dive in, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Damn! Elizabeth slammed her fists against the steering wheel, staring at the smoke pouring from under the hood of her high-end SUV. The scorching afternoon sun beat down on the dusty back road between sprawling ranches, making the whole situation feel even more hopeless. This can't be happening. Not today. She tried her phone for the third time, but the weak signal showed only one flickering bar. The call to roadside assistance dropped again. Elizabeth tossed the phone onto the passenger seat in frustration. $25 million worth of technology, and I can't even get a signal in the middle of nowhere, she muttered, running a hand through her hair. The heat inside the vehicle was climbing fast, beads of sweat rolling down her forehead. Need a hand? A deep voice startled her. Elizabeth whipped around and saw a man on a powerful bay horse, slowly approaching along the shoulder of the road. His strong hands gripped the reins, and his eyes, half hidden beneath the brim of his hat, studied her with quiet curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked, instinctively locking the doors. "Just someone offering help," he answered calmly. "Or I can ride on if you'd rather wait alone in this heat." Elizabeth sized him up cautiously. Years of dealing with slick businessmen and gold-digging heirs had made her naturally suspicious. "My car broke down," she finally said, keeping her distance. "And cell service is terrible. Mind if I take a look?" he offered, swinging down from the saddle with easy grace. "I know a thing or two about engines. It's a lot more complicated than you think," she replied dryly. "Imported model. Engines are always engines," he said, stepping closer. "May I?" Something about his calm confidence made her nod. Elizabeth stepped out of the car, the wall of heat hitting her face like a slap. She watched as the stranger carefully lifted the hood, stepping back from the escaping steam. "I'm Elizabeth," she said, surprising herself. "Jake," he answered without looking away from the engine. His hands moved with practiced precision among the parts. "You've got a serious radiator issue. You'll need a tow." "Great," Elizabeth sighed. "And how long until someone shows up on a road like this?" "Could be hours." Jake closed the hood gently. "I can take you to the nearest town, about 5 miles. There's a shop there and you'll get better signal." Elizabeth glanced at the horse, then back at the man. The idea of riding that animal with a total stranger felt ridiculous. "Thanks for the offer, but I'll wait for roadside assistance." "As you wish." He wiped his hands on a bandana and walked back to his horse. At that moment, Elizabeth's phone rang. It was the service saying that, due to the remote location, the estimated arrival time was 4 hours. 4 hours? She repeated, incredulous. She hung up and stared at the merciless sun. Sweat was already soaking her back. "Wait," she called. "I think I'll take that ride to town after all." A small smile tugged at his lips as he reached out to help her up. Elizabeth hesitated only a second before taking his hand. "Hold on tight," he instructed, swinging up in front of her. The ride was quiet, broken only by the steady rhythm of hooves on dirt. Elizabeth kept a respectful distance, gripping the saddle instead of him. Slowly, the dry landscape gave way to greener fields. "First time on a horse?" Jake asked, breaking the silence. "How'd you guess?" "My posture's too stiff." "You prefer vehicles with engines and AC," she shot back dryly. Jake chuckled. "Some pleasures are simpler. Feel the wind, smell the earth. That's priceless." "Definitely cheaper," she countered as they neared the town. Elizabeth noticed colorful flags and decorations going up around the main square. "What's going on there?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Harvest Festival starts in 2 days. Biggest celebration of the year around here. We, meaning the locals. I moved here 3 years ago." Something in the way he said it sparked her interest. "Why choose to live here? It's so isolated." Jake took a few seconds to answer. Sometimes starting over where nobody knows your past is the only way to move forward. The cryptic reply hung in the air as they rode into town. The streets were simple but clean, lined with modest houses and a few small shops. People greeted Jake with warm smiles and curious glances at Elizabeth. "There's the shop," he said, pointing to a garage on the corner. "I'll leave you here." The mechanic, a middle-aged man named Hank, looked at the photos of her car on her phone and scratched his head. "Gonna need special parts," he said. "At least 2 days for them to get here." 2 days. Elizabeth couldn't hide her panic. "I can't be stuck here for 2 days. We've got a real nice inn," offered a woman who'd been listening from the doorway of the little diner next door. "I'm Martha, owner of the diner and the inn. Be my pleasure to have you." "It's not about lodging," Elizabeth explained, trying to stay calm. "I have important meetings." "Well, meetings will have to wait," Jake said. He still hadn't left. "Unless you feel like walking the 40 miles to the city." Elizabeth shot him an irritated look. "Don't you have anything better to do than annoy me?" "Actually, I do," he smiled, unfazed. "But first I'll make sure you're settled." "I don't need a babysitter," she replied coolly. Martha gently interrupted. "Why don't you have some lunch while we figure things out? The ride must have worn you out." Elizabeth's stomach answered for her with an audible growl. She hadn't eaten anything since a quick breakfast at the family mansion. "Fine," she relented. "But I need to make some calls first." "Signal's better by the church," Jake advised. "I'll stick around in case you need anything." While walking to the church, Elizabeth called her assistant and canceled the next 2 days of meetings. Then she hesitated before texting her mother a vague update about a travel delay. Her father would lose it if he knew she was stuck in some small town. When she returned to the diner, a simple but mouth-watering plate was waiting: rice, beans, roast beef, fresh vegetables. Jake was chatting easily with Martha. "Problem solved?" he asked when he saw her. "Temporarily," Elizabeth replied, sitting down. The smell made her stomach growl again. "Try it," Martha encouraged. "Everything's grown right here." The first bite was a revelation. The flavors were bold, honest. Nothing like the refined restaurants she usually frequented. "This is really good," she admitted, surprised at her own sincerity. "Honest food," Jake said, standing. "Well, I've got work at the fields." "You're a farmer?" Elizabeth asked, suddenly interested. "Among other things." His eyes met hers for a brief moment. "Hope you find something worthwhile in these 2 days." After he left, Martha sat down with Elizabeth. "Jake's a good man. Helped a lot of folks here with sustainable growing methods." "He doesn't seem like a typical farmer," Elizabeth observed. "He's not. He had a different life before," Martha said vaguely. "But it's not my place to tell other people's stories." Elizabeth's curiosity grew. "So what is there to do in this town for 2 days?" "More than you think," Martha smiled. "Sometimes the simplest places hold the biggest surprises." That afternoon, settled into the inn's simple but cozy room, Elizabeth watched the festival preparations from her window. Kids ran between booths going up. Old folks chatted on park benches. Young people carried musical instruments. There was a harmony in the simplicity that clashed with the frantic pace of her city life. Her phone rang, her father. "Where exactly are you?" His voice carried the usual authority. "Mom said something about travel trouble." "I'm fine, Dad. Car broke down, but it's being fixed. I'll send the driver to pick you up immediately. We need you at the investors' meeting tomorrow." Elizabeth hesitated, watching the square. Jake had come back and was helping men set up a stage. Something about the way he moved among people intrigued her deeply. "No need," she said finally. "I'll stay and wait for the repair. Sarah can cover for me at the meeting." "That's ridiculous. You have responsibilities, Elizabeth." "I'm taking responsibility for this situation. I'll be fine, Dad. I'll talk to you when I'm back." She hung up before he could argue more. An act of rebellion she'd never dared before. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from a strange sense of freedom. Dinner. The diner was packed with locals. Everyone turned to look, not with the usual awe she was used to, just genuine curiosity. "Come sit," Martha called, leading her to a table where Jake sat with others. "Want you to meet some folks. This the city girl's spot?" One of the men teased with a grin. "Elizabeth," she corrected, offering her hand. "And I'm more than just the city girl." "No doubt," Jake said, watching her with new interest. The evening passed with easy talk about town life, crops, the coming festival. Nobody asked about her family or status. For the first time, Elizabeth felt she could just be herself. No last name, no expectations. When everyone left and the diner emptied, she stayed at the table, staring at a glass of local wine. "What are you thinking about?" Jake asked. He'd lingered too. "How fast life can change in a single day," she answered honestly. "This morning I was worried about spreadsheets and reports. Now I'm here talking to a stranger in a town I didn't know existed. The best meetings in life are the ones we don't plan," he said softly. "You chose to stay when you could have left. Why?" The question caught her off guard. "How do you know that?" "Small towns, big ears," he smiled. "Your call didn't go unnoticed." She should feel intruded upon, but oddly didn't. "Maybe I needed a break from my life for a while. Or maybe you're looking for something you don't even know yet," he suggested, standing. "Good night, city girl. Hope you find whatever it is." As he walked out, Elizabeth felt an inexplicable urge. "Jake," she called. "Thanks for stopping on the road today." He turned, a faint smile on his lips. "Anytime. Tomorrow? Could you show me around the area?" "I'd like that," she answered, surprising herself again. That night, lying on the simple in bed, Elizabeth stared at the ceiling, listening to the night sounds of the town. So different from the city's constant noise. She felt like she'd stepped into a parallel world where time moved slower and people actually cared. Strangest of all, she felt comfortable, as if part of her had always belonged somewhere like this. 2 days, she whispered. What can happen in 2 days? She had no idea she'd just asked the question that would change her life forever. Morning came with birdsong and the smell of fresh bread. Elizabeth woke, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar room. No Egyptian cotton sheets, no soundproof silence. Just simple handmade quilts and the gentle hum of a town waking up. A soft knock. "Morning," Martha's warm voice called. "Breakfast whenever you're ready." "Thanks. Coming down?" Elizabeth replied. Without her usual beauty routine or luxury products, she felt strangely vulnerable. In the small mirror, she saw a rawer version of herself. Downstairs, the diner was nearly empty except for Jake sipping coffee by the window. "Morning, city girl," he greeted with a smile. "Ready to see our little world?" "I haven't had coffee yet," she said, trying not to show how his presence rattled her. "No rush. I've got the whole day." That surprised her. "No work today? Fields to tend. Delegated my chores. Wanted to make sure you didn't get bored so far from civilization," he teased gently. Martha appeared with a tray, hearty homemade biscuits, jams, fresh fruit, steaming coffee. "Jake knows every corner of this area better than anyone," Martha said while pouring. "He'll show you things even locals never see." The breakfast was simple, yet every flavor felt more intense, more real than any gourmet meal she'd ever had. The fruit tasted like sunshine, the bread like earth. So, Jake began when she finished. "What first? Waterfalls, mountain trails, or I could show you how a sustainable ranch works." "You really turned a breakdown into a tour package?" she asked, but without yesterday's edge. "Life rarely gives second chances at first impressions," he replied. "I'd rather show you our best." His honest simplicity disarmed her. "Show me your favorite place," she decided. "The one that made you stay." A spark lit his eyes. "Come with me." They left town in a small pickup. The road wound between cultivated fields and patches of native forest. Jake explained every detail with the passion of someone who truly loved the land. "See that field?" he pointed. "When I got here, it was wrecked from chemicals. 3 years later, it's alive again. Bees, birds, everything coming back. How'd you learn all this? Elizabeth asked, genuinely curious. Studied agronomy in college, he said. But the real education came after I lost everything. The words hung between them. She wanted to ask more, but something in his distant look made her wait. Instead, she studied his hands on the wheel, strong, scarred, calloused. So different from the manicured hands of the executives she knew. After half an hour, the road ended. We walk from here, Jake said. I'm not exactly dressed for hiking, she hesitated. Just 10 minutes, he promised, offering his hand. Worth every step. The narrow trail climbed gently through ancient trees. The air was cooler, scented with forest. Almost there, Jake announced as the path began to descend. Close your eyes. What? Trust me. I want the first view to be perfect. Reluctantly, Elizabeth closed her eyes. She felt Jake's hand take hers, guiding her carefully a few more yards. Open. What she saw stole her breath. They stood on a small rise overlooking a vast valley where fields of sunflowers stretched as far as the eye could see, thousands of golden faces turned toward the sun, an ocean of light and color. My God, she whispered. This place was abandoned when I arrived, Jake explained, watching her reaction. The old owner swore nothing would grow here, but the land was just tired, needing care. These were the first sunflowers I planted. Every year the field grows a little more. Elizabeth walked to the edge, gently touching one flower. It's indescribable. That's why I stayed, he said simply. Because I believe there's always beauty waiting to be reborn, even in the most unlikely places. His words struck deep, as if he were talking not just about the land, but about her. They sat beneath a shady tree, a comfortable silence settling until Elizabeth finally asked, What did you lose, Jake? You said you lost everything. He took a deep breath. My family had a ranch in this area for 3 generations. We weren't rich, but we did well, farming sustainably before it was trendy. Then a big agribusiness conglomerate came sniffing around because of the water sources. When we refused to sell, the trouble started. What kind of trouble? First bigger and bigger offers, then legal pressure. Finally, forged documents appeared claiming my family had illegally taken the land decades ago. His voice grew heavier with every word. We fought in court, but they had high-priced lawyers. We lost everything. The ranch, the house I was born in, the land my grandfather worked until his last day. Elizabeth felt a lump in her throat. I'm so sorry. The worst was watching my dad waste away after. He never recovered. Died 8 months after we left. Jake took another deep breath, pushing the memories away. But I found this place. Started over. I'm helping other small ranchers fight back, teaching methods that make their land productive without destroying it. And the conglomerate? Elizabeth asked. What happened to them? A bitter smile crossed Jake's face. Harrison Agribusiness keeps expanding, swallowing small ranches, diverting water for their industrial crops. The owner's a ruthless shark. He stopped, noticing Elizabeth's frozen expression. What is it? Harrison? She repeated weakly. Richard Harrison is my father. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Jake's warm eyes turned distant as he processed it. You're a Harrison, he said at last, voice flat. Elizabeth Harrison. I didn't know, she whispered, feeling suddenly exposed. I didn't know about the land, about your family. Jake stood, stepping away. Of course you didn't. Why would you? Just another deal for your family's empire. That's not fair, Elizabeth protested, standing too. Don't judge me for my father's actions. Fair. The word came out like a humorless laugh. You want to talk fair? While you grew up in mansions and went to the best schools, I watched my father say goodbye to the land he loved. While you worried about what dress to wear to galas, I worked day and night to rebuild a life from nothing. Every word hit like a physical blow. I'm not my father, she insisted, voice small against his intensity. No. Jake met her eyes directly. You drive the same kind of car, enjoy the same money, probably follow the same path in business. Elizabeth wanted to argue, to say she was different, but the words wouldn't come, because until yesterday she had never questioned where her wealth came from or at what cost. "I need to get back to town," she said finally, wounded pride demanding an exit. The ride back was tense silence. When they reached the inn, Elizabeth got out without looking back, ignoring Jake calling her name. She felt betrayed, even though the real betrayal, if any, came from her own family. In her room she tried calling her father voicemail, tried accessing company files remotely, insufficient credentials. She felt powerless and, for the first time, questioned everything she thought she knew about her family. The afternoon dragged. She skipped lunch, staying in her room, torn between anger at Jake for judging her and growing doubt about her father's character. A soft knock. "Martha with tea and cookies. I can't force you to eat, but I won't let you starve under my roof," the older woman said kindly. "Thank you," Elizabeth murmured. "Did you know who I was from the start?" Martha sat on the bed's edge. "Suspected when I saw your car in the photo, but I wanted to give you and Jake a chance to meet without that weight." "Why?" "Because I believe people are more than their circumstances. Jake's a good man who suffered greatly, and you, well, your eyes have the same curiosity and kindness I saw in your mother years ago, before she lost herself in that marriage." "You knew my mother?" "Laura came through this town a few times when she was still dating your father. She was different then, full of dreams, plans to help communities like ours." Martha sighed. "After the wedding, we never saw her again." Elizabeth felt the floor drop out from under her. Her quiet, submissive mother had a past she knew nothing about. "I'm not defending what Jake said today," Martha continued. "Pain makes people say cruel things, but maybe you two needed this collision to find a new path." When Martha left, Elizabeth sat staring at the cooling tea. For years she'd lived in a bubble of privilege, never questioning its origins. Now everything was turning upside down. Twilight painted the sky as she finally went downstairs. The square buzzed with festival prep. She crossed paths with townsfolk who greeted her shyly. Word of her identity had clearly spread, wandering aimlessly. She found herself at the little chapel on the square's edge. She slipped inside seeking quiet to sort her thoughts. The interior was simple, lit only by a few candles. She sat in the back pew, watching shadows dance on old walls. "Didn't expect to find you here," a familiar voice said. Jake stood near the altar, apparently seeking the same solitude. "Didn't expect to be here," she replied. Not moving to leave, he walked slowly and sat in the pew in front of her, facing away. "Sorry for what I said earlier. My anger isn't really with you. It's with my family," she finished. "And I can't blame you for that. I grew up hearing we shouldn't judge children for their parents' sins," he said, turning to face her. "Today I broke my own rule." The silence that followed wasn't tense anymore, just a strange mutual understanding. "When did you figure out who I was?" Elizabeth asked. "Last night I overheard your full name on a call, but I wanted to believe it was coincidence, that the universe wouldn't be that ironic, putting Richard Harrison's daughter in my path." "What happened to your family was wrong," she said, the words inadequate against the injustice. "I want to know more. I want to understand." Jake studied her face a long moment, searching for sincerity. "Why?" "Because maybe it's time I questioned the story I've been told my whole life." Her voice grew firm. "If my father did what you say, I need to know. I need to do something about it." A cautious smile, different from any he'd shown before, spread across Jake's face. Hopeful. "Tomorrow," he offered, standing. "Tomorrow I can show you what really happened. If you're ready to see." "I am," she promised. When Jake left the chapel, Elizabeth stayed seated, feeling she'd just made a decision that would change her life forever. The conflict between family loyalty and emerging truth was painful, but also liberating. That night, she finally reached her mother by phone. "I'm okay, Mom. Just curious. Were you ever in Willow Creek?" The long silence on the line was answer enough. "How did you find out?" Laura asked at last, voice trembling. "I'm here now. Met some people who remember you." "Elizabeth," her mother's voice broke. "There are things about the past, about how we built our fortune, That I need to discover for myself, Elizabeth finished. That I should have told you long ago, Laura corrected. But I was afraid, still am. Your father doesn't take kindly to being questioned. I know, Elizabeth said gently. But I have to do this, Mom. I have to know the truth. Be careful, Laura pleaded. And when you come home, we'll talk about everything. After hanging up, Elizabeth walked to the window. The town was lit for festival rehearsals. Music and laughter drifting up. Somewhere among those lights, Jake was also thinking about tomorrow and the truths it would bring. The pain that had started as a chasm between them now felt, paradoxically, like the only possible bridge. Silent tears ran down Elizabeth's cheeks. Not from sadness or regret, but from a strange mix of fear and determination. Tomorrow she would face her family's past, and somehow she knew nothing would ever be the same. Dawn brought a light rain, misting the inn's windows with droplets that caught the golden sunrise. Elizabeth woke early after a restless night filled with dreams where familiar faces turned into strangers. Downstairs, Martha was baking bread. "Sleep okay?" the older woman asked, noticing the shadows under Elizabeth's eyes. "Not really," she admitted, accepting a mug of hot coffee. "Lots on my mind." "Truth does that," Martha said wisely. "First it disturbs us, then it sets us free." Sounds like something Mom would say. Elizabeth gave a small smile. "I talked to her last night." Martha paused. "How was it?" "Strange. Like talking to a version of her I never knew. She mentioned things about the past, about Dad. She sounded scared but also relieved to finally speak." A knowing silence settled while Elizabeth sipped her coffee. The sounds of the town waking drifted in, greetings, tools clinking, distant farm animals. "Jake came by early," Martha said. "Asked you to meet him in the square at 9 if you still want to go." Elizabeth glanced at the clock. "Half an hour." "How did he seem?" "Determined. Worried too." Martha leaned on the counter, looking Elizabeth in the eye. "What you two are doing today won't be easy for either of you. But maybe it's necessary so you can both move forward." At 9 sharp, Elizabeth was in the square watching final festival prep. Jake arrived walking, face serious. "Morning," he greeted formally. "Still want to do this?" "More than ever," she answered firmly. They climbed into the same pickup, but the mood was entirely different. No lightness of discovery, only the weight of what lay ahead. "Where are we going?" Elizabeth asked as they left town. "My old family ranch," Jake said, gripping the wheel tighter. "Or what's left of it." The dirt road wound through gentle hills, past cultivated fields and preserved woodland. After about 40 minutes, Jake turned onto an almost invisible sidetrack. "This entrance used to be marked by 2 huge old oaks," he said bitterly. "Cut down to expand planting." The truck bounced along the neglected path. Finally, they stopped on a low rise. "We're here," Jake said, cutting the engine. Elizabeth looked around, confused. No house, just endless soybean rows stretching to the horizon. "I don't understand. Where's the house?" "Right where we're parked," Jake answered, voice thick with contained emotion. "Tore it down 3 years ago. Planted industrial soy instead. Chemical-heavy monoculture that poisons the soil and aquifers." He got out. Elizabeth followed. The wind rippled through the soybean leaves, almost beautiful if you didn't know the story. "My family lived here 3 generations," Jake continued, walking a few steps. "Grandpa built the house with his own hands. There," he pointed to empty air, "was the kitchen where Mom made preserves to sell at the farmer's market. And over there was the porch where Dad played guitar on summer nights." Elizabeth felt tears sting as Jake rebuilt his lost home with words, like listening to a ghost describe the world of the living. "What exactly happened?" she asked, needing the full story. Jake drew a deep breath. "Started 5 years ago when Harrison Agribusiness began buying up land in the area. Offered above-market prices for strategic properties, especially ones with springs and water access. He walked to a lone tree in the middle of the field, the only remnant of original vegetation. Our family refused every offer. This land wasn't just property to us. It was our history, our identity. The springs underneath feed not just us, but half the county. And my father wouldn't take no for an answer, Elizabeth guessed. No, Jake confirmed. First more aggressive offers, then pressure. Our produce suddenly got rejected at markets with no explanation. The bank abruptly reviewed our farm loans. His gaze drifted into the distance. Then one day we got a court notice. Forged documents surfaced claiming my grandfather had seized the land illegally decades earlier. Absurd lie. We had every paper in order, passed down generations. Elizabeth felt shame burn her cheeks. She recognized the tactics. She'd overheard similar conversations in her father's office over the years, always choosing to ignore the implications. In court, Jake went on, it was our word against official documents presented by a team of expensive lawyers. We lost everything in under 6 months. Had 2 weeks to leave, taking only personal belongings. He knelt, scooping a handful of dirt. The day we left, Dad buried something under this tree. Never told me what. A week later, the machines came and razed everything. 3 weeks after that, Dad had his first heart attack. Elizabeth couldn't hold back tears. I'm so sorry, she whispered, knowing it wasn't enough. I really didn't know. I know you didn't, Jake said, letting the soil slip through his fingers. You're more a victim of this than you realize. How so? Your father built an empire on the backs of families like mine. But the price wasn't paid just by us, it was paid by you too, growing up in a world where power and money justify anything, where you learned not to ask where the wealth came from. The words struck like a physical blow, mostly because she recognized their truth. How many times had she deliberately ignored the shady side of family business, hiding behind convenient ignorance? Come on, Jake said, heading back to the truck. One more thing I want to show you. They drove 10 minutes, following a winding creek. He stopped near a private property fence with no trespassing signs. We walk from here, Jake said, and we can't be seen. Are we trespassing on company land? Elizabeth asked, alarmed. Technically, yes, he admitted. But this parcel used to be ours too. What I need to show you is worth the risk. They slipped under the fence and followed a faint trail through brush. After several minutes, they reached a small clearing where the creek opened into a crystal-clear spring. This is the main spring for the whole area, Jake whispered. Feeds the creek that supplies dozens of ranches downstream. Elizabeth took in the bubbling water, the beauty undeniable. So why are we hiding? In answer, Jake pointed to a half-built concrete structure a few yards from the spring. A dam. Your father's diverting the flow, he explained. When it's finished, all this water gets piped to Harrison agribusiness plantations. Downstream ranches will be left dry. That's illegal, Elizabeth murmured, grasping the severity. Completely, but who's going to stop him? Environmental agencies are in his pocket, same as local politicians. Voices approaching made Jake pull her behind a bush. 2 uniformed men walked past on patrol. Let's go, Jake whispered once they were gone. We've seen enough. Back in the truck, Elizabeth sat silent, processing. This wasn't just one family wronged. It was a systematic pattern of environmental and social destruction for profit. What do you plan to do with this information? Jake finally asked, breaking the heavy quiet. I don't know yet, she admitted, but I can't just ignore it anymore. The ride back to town was quiet, each lost in thought. When they reached the square, the festival bustle was in full swing. Thanks for showing me, Elizabeth said as she got out. Must have been hard coming back. It was, Jake confirmed, but maybe necessary for both of us. Their eyes met, and for a moment something deeper than understanding passed between them. Despite everything, or perhaps because of it, an undeniable connection had formed. See you later? She asked, surprising herself. I'll be helping set up the main stage, he said. Then rehearsal for tomorrow's performances. Could use extra hands. During the afternoon, Elizabeth worked alongside townsfolk, hauling boards, setting up booths, hanging colorful flags. It was completely different from anything she'd ever done, yet oddly fulfilling. Never thought I'd see a Harrison swinging a hammer? An older man working beside her chuckled. How do you know who I am? She asked, surprised. Word travels fast in small towns, he said simply. I was friends with Jake's granddad. Good man. What do you think of me being here? He paused, considering. I think an apple can fall pretty far from the tree if the wind's strong enough. That enigmatic answer stayed with her as work continued. Late afternoon, Martha showed up with a huge pot of stew and fresh bread for the workers. You did good today, Jake said, sitting beside Elizabeth with a plate. Your hands must be sore. She looked at her palms, blistered and scratched. A little, but I don't mind. This might sound weird, but I'm proud of you, he said quietly. Most people in your position would have run from the truth or denied responsibility. I haven't done anything concrete yet, Elizabeth objected. Being here is something, Jake replied. Listening, seeing, helping. First steps toward change. Night fell and simple string lights lit the square. A band started playing traditional music and couples formed to dance. Tomorrow's the big day, Martha said, joining them. Hope you stay for the festival, Elizabeth. Car's not ready yet, right? Parts are coming, she answered distractedly, watching dancers. But yeah, I want to stay. A soft melody began. Care to dance? Jake asked, offering his hand. The invitation caught her off guard. After everything they'd shared today, the pain, revelations, heavy history, a dance felt surprisingly ordinary. I don't know the steps, she admitted. I'll teach you, he said gently. Under the starlit sky, surrounded by townsfolk who now greeted her with real smiles, Elizabeth learned the traditional dance. Jake's calloused hands guided hers, now also marked by honest work. You're a quick study, he praised when she caught the rhythm. Good teacher, she replied, feeling strangely light, like she was dancing not just with her body but with her newly awakened soul. As the night deepened and music shifted, the space between them shrank naturally. During a pause between songs, their faces were so close she could feel his breath. This is crazy, she whispered. What is? All of it. You and me here after everything. Life rarely follows the scripts we write, Jake said, voice husky. Sometimes the most unlikely meetings are the ones we need most. Music started again, but they didn't resume dancing. Instead, they drifted to the edge of the square. What happens after the festival? Jake asked. You go back to your life, the family company? It was the question she'd been avoiding. I don't know if I can go back and pretend nothing's changed, she said, but I'm not sure I have the courage to do what needs doing. Confront my father, expose what he did, fight to right the wrongs even if it means going against my own family. Jake studied her face a long moment. What if I said I don't expect that from you? That I understand how hard it would be to betray your own blood, no matter how justified. Unexpected tears filled her eyes. That only makes it harder, because then I'd know I was choosing the easy path, not the right one. Without words, Jake simply took her hand, lacing their fingers. The simple gesture held more understanding and support than any speech. Back at the inn hours later, Elizabeth found a text from her mother. Your father knows where you are. He's furious. Be careful. The warning sent a chill down her spine. The real world, with its complications and consequences, was closing in again. Their brief idyll was about to face its toughest test. Lying in bed replaying the day, the ruins of Jake's home, the threatened spring, dancing under the stars, Elizabeth knew a crucial decision loomed. For the first time, she felt both terrified and strangely at peace with what she had to do. Tomorrow's festival would only be the beginning of a much longer, harder journey. The festival dawned bright and clear, a gentle breeze fluttering the colorful flags around the square. Elizabeth woke to the excited sounds of the town in full swing. Cheerful voices, music in the distance, the smell of food being prepared. For a moment, she almost forgot her mother's disturbing text from the night before. Almost. Her phone rang while she dressed. Her father. Where do you think you are? His voice was ice-cold, controlled, the calm before the storm. Good morning to you too, Dad, she replied, trying to keep steady. Answer me, what are you doing in that town? And why did my driver tell me you refused to come home when I sent the car yesterday? Elizabeth took a deep breath. So he'd already sent someone without even telling her. I'm waiting for my car to be fixed and enjoying the local festival. Festival. The word dripped contempt. You're the CFO of the largest agribusiness company in the country, not some tourist playing at county fairs. Maybe I need that once in a while, she said, shocked at her own boldness. To meet real people, see how real people live. And what are we? Fiction? His tone sharpened. You're in the same town where that troublemaker Jake settled. Coincidence? Elizabeth felt a chill. How did he know about Jake? I've been monitoring that man for years, Richard continued, reading her silence correctly. He keeps spreading lies about our company, trying to turn small ranchers against us. Or maybe he's just defending what's right. Elizabeth shot back before she could stop herself. The silence on the line was more menacing than any shout. You talked to him? Richard concluded. What did he tell you? The truth, Elizabeth said, voice steadier. About how you took his family's land with forged documents. About how you're building an illegal dam to steal water from dozens of small ranches. He has no proof of any of that. I saw the dam with my own eyes, Dad. I was there. Another heavier silence. You trespassed on company property? His voice was dangerously calm. I'm part of the company, remember? I have every right to inspect our operations. You're confused, Elizabeth. That man is manipulating you, using you to get to me. Can't you see it? Or maybe for the first time I'm seeing clearly, she countered. Seeing what we built and at what cost. Listen carefully. Richard's tone turned calculating. I'll be there in a few hours. We'll talk in person. Until then, stay away from him. The call ended before she could respond. She stared at the phone, fear and resolve warring inside her. Her father was coming. That changed everything. Downstairs, Martha was cooking extra for the festival crowds. Festival always brings folks from neighboring ranches, she explained, noticing Elizabeth eyeing the mountains of food. Everyone comes to celebrate the harvest, even those with just a tiny plot. Martha, Elizabeth hesitated. My father is coming to town today. The older woman stopped, concern creasing her face. That's not good, she murmured. Richard Harrison isn't welcome here, not after what he did to so many families. I know, but I can't stop him from coming. And I don't know what I'll do when he gets here. Martha rested a gentle hand on her shoulder. Whatever you decide, remember, some choices define who we really are. The morning flew by. The festival was officially open and the little town transformed. Booths lined the square. Artisans displayed their work. The stage hosted music. Kids ran laughing. The air filled with the smells of traditional food. Elizabeth wandered the booths, soaking in the contagious joy, when she spotted Jake helping a group of farmers set up their organic produce display. Looks like we've got a local celebrity, she teased. Walking up, Jake grinned, wiping his hands after placing a table. Comes with being involved in every community project. How are you feeling today? Nervous? She admitted, lowering her voice. My father's on his way. His smile vanished. When? Today. Not sure exactly. He was quiet a moment, processing. What do you think he wants? To take me home, for sure. And probably confront you. Wouldn't be the first time, Jake said with barely concealed bitterness. Last time he came with 2 security guys and a court order. Elizabeth felt fresh shame for her father's behavior. I'm sorry. Not your fault, he said, his gaze softening. But we need to be ready. Richard Harrison doesn't leave things half-finished. One of the farmers called Jake over. Before leaving, he touched Elizabeth's arm lightly. No matter what happens today, remember, you've already shown more courage in the last few days than most people do in a lifetime. His words warmed her heart, giving her strength for what was coming. She continued exploring the festival, interacting with townsfolk who now treated her with a mix of respect and caution, as if they sensed she stood on the edge between 2 worlds. Near noon, the festival hit its peak. The main stage featured a traditional dance performance. Then Elizabeth noticed unusual movement at the square's entrance. 3 large black SUVs pulled up. Out stepped her father and 4 men she recognized as company security. Her heart pounded. Even from a distance, she could see the hard set of his jaw as he scanned the crowd for her. Without thinking, she melted into the crowd. Buying time to decide how to handle this, she ducked behind a large booth, watching as her father approached townsfolk, clearly asking about her. The closed faces and short answers made it clear Richard Harrison was not welcome. "He's here, isn't he?" Jake's voice startled her. He'd found her without being seen. "Yes, with security," she confirmed, feeling like a fugitive. "Come with me," Jake offered, taking her hand. "I know a spot we can talk without being spotted." She let him lead her through the booths to the same little chapel where they'd spoken days before. Inside it was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the festival outside. "We can't hide forever," Elizabeth said, sitting on a pew. "I know, but you need to decide what you'll do when you face him." She closed her eyes a moment. "Part of me wants to confront him, demand answers, force him to admit what he did. Another part is terrified." "Being scared is normal," Jake said softly, sitting beside her. "He's your father, no matter what. Facing him means questioning everything you grew up believing." "What would you do in my place?" she asked, genuinely wanting to know. He thought a moment. "I can't answer that. Our stories are different. But I know you have the strength to do what's right, even when it's hard." A noise at the entrance interrupted them. The chapel door opened, revealing the imposing figure of Richard Harrison. "So this is where you're hiding," he said coldly, striding down the aisle. His eyes narrowed on Jake. "And with him, of course. Why am I not surprised?" Elizabeth stood instinctively, placing herself between her father and Jake. "I'm not hiding, and I'm not here against my will, if that's what you're implying." "No," Richard raised an eyebrow. "Then you'll tell me it's pure coincidence your car broke down in the exact town where the man trying hardest to destroy our company now lives?" "Actually, yes," Jake answered, standing too. "But maybe the kind of coincidence the universe arranges when a truth needs to come out." "Still the philosopher," Richard sneered. "Still spreading lies to anyone who'll listen, now to my own daughter." "They're not lies, Dad," Elizabeth cut in firmly. "I saw the documents. I saw the illegal dam. I saw what's left of his family's home." "You saw what he wanted you to see," Richard corrected. "A twisted version of events. Those lands were acquired legally. His family had no proper title." "Liar!" Jake's voice rose. "We had every document. Documents that mysteriously vanished when presented in court." Richard ignored him, focusing on Elizabeth. "You're my daughter, heir to everything I built with blood and sweat. You can't seriously be considering believing this nobody over your own father." "That nobody has a name," Elizabeth said, surprised at her own steel. "And everything he's shown me holds together better than your empty explanations." Richard's expression hardened. "You don't understand the real world, Elizabeth. You think we built an empire following rules designed to keep the little people down? Sometimes hard decisions are necessary for progress." "Hard decisions?" she echoed, incredulous. "That's what you call ruining lives? Forging papers? Stealing water from entire communities?" "I call it business," he replied icily. "The same business that pays for your comfortable life, your designer clothes, your elite education. The same business that will be yours one day. Not if it's built on lies and suffering." Richard drew a deep breath, visibly reining in his anger. "We're leaving. We have an important meeting tomorrow morning and you need to prepare. We can finish this discussion in the car." "I'm not going with you," Elizabeth said calmly. "Excuse me? I'm not leaving. Not yet. I need to fully understand what happened here." Richard's face became a mask of barely contained fury. "It's this man," he hissed, jabbing a finger toward Jake. "He's brainwashing you. Can't you see it?" "The only manipulation I see is yours," Elizabeth shot back. "All these years making me believe our success was just hard work and smart business. When really what?" Richard interrupted. "Finish the thought. When really we stepped on people like him to climb," she finished, each word lifting a weight she hadn't known she carried. Richard stared at her a long moment, then turned to Jake. "This isn't over," he warned, voice low and menacing. If you think you can turn my daughter against me and walk away untouched, you're sorely mistaken. I never tried to turn her against you, Jake said calmly. I only showed her the truth when she asked to see it. The truth, Richard spat. Your convenient version of it. Turning back to Elizabeth, his tone shifted to authoritative persuasion. You have until tomorrow morning to come to your senses. The car will be waiting at the inn at 9. If you're not in it, consider yourself cut off from the company and the family accounts. With that, he spun on his heel and left the chapel, leaving heavy silence behind. Elizabeth sat again, legs trembling from adrenaline. He's never threatened me like that before, because you've never really stood up to him, Jake said gently, sitting beside her. Men like your father are used to controlling everything. When that control is challenged, they show their true colors. What do I do now? She murmured, more to herself. What does your heart say? She looked at her hands, now calloused from the past day's work. My heart's torn. Part of me wants to do the right thing, expose what he did, fight for justice for your family and the others. But another part is terrified of losing everything. That fear is understandable, Jake said softly. It's not just money or position. It's your father. It's more than that, she confessed. Despite everything, he's still my dad. The idea of publicly betraying him guts me. It wouldn't be betrayal, Jake corrected gently. It would be honesty. And in the long run, it might be the greatest act of love you could give him, showing there are consequences, even for men with money and power. They stayed in the chapel a long time, the distant festival music the only sound. When they finally emerged, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange. The square was still lively. Richard and his men had gone, and the townsfolk seemed determined not to let the brief disturbance ruin their celebration. Martha found them near a food booth. You two okay? Heard there was a scene in the chapel. We're fine, Jake assured her. For now. He'll be back tomorrow, Elizabeth said. Or at least send someone. And if I'm not in that car? Her voice cracked. Then you start a new life, Martha said with the wisdom of years. Harder at first, maybe, but truly yours. The night unfolded with music and traditional dances. Despite the confrontation, Elizabeth let herself be swept up in the joy. She danced with Jake under the stars, shared meals with people who now treated her like one of their own, listened to old-timers' stories around a bonfire. In a quiet moment watching kids play near the stage, Jake brushed her hand. If you decide to stay, he said softly, you won't be alone. You have my word. Elizabeth laced her fingers through his, a spark running through her at the contact. It's strange. I've only known you a few days, but it feels like we've known each other in another life, he finished, smiling. Something like that, she admitted, returning the smile. Or maybe it's just what happens when someone finally sees us for who we really are, beyond masks and expectations. As the night deepened, certainty grew. Whatever she decided tomorrow morning, nothing would be the same. The world of unquestioned privilege and comfortable conformity no longer existed for her. Back at the inn, she found another text from her mother. Your father is livid. Says he'll disinherit you if you don't come home. But I want you to know, I'll support whatever you choose. Maybe it's time we both found our courage. Unexpected tears filled her eyes. Her quiet, submissive mother was finally finding her voice. Inspired by her daughter's bravery, Elizabeth fell asleep to the distant festival music, knowing tomorrow would bring the most important decision of her life. Return to the comfort of the only world she'd ever known, or step into the uncertainty of a new path guided only by her own conscience. And somehow the fear she should have felt at that precipice had been replaced by a strange peace. The peace of finally finding her true north. Dawn arrived with reverent softness, as if nature itself understood the weight of the day. Golden rays slipped through the inn's small window, illuminating the young woman who had barely slept, wrestling with the road ahead. 8:15 a.m. In 45 minutes, the car sent by her father would be waiting to take her back to the life she'd always known. Back to comfort, privilege, and responsibilities not of her choosing. Back to a world built on the suffering of people like Jake and his family. Elizabeth rose and opened the window wide, breathing the fresh morning air. The square still bore traces of last night's festival. Flags fluttering, a few booths left standing. Town life resumed its slower, thoughtful rhythm. Nothing like the frantic city pace she was used to. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she said, expecting Martha with breakfast. To her astonishment, her mother Laura walked in. "Mom!" Elizabeth cried, running to hug her. "I had to see you," Laura said, holding her daughter tight, "to talk in person before you make your choice. How did you get here? Does Dad know? I drove myself. And no, he thinks I'm at a spa. Only lie I could come up with to buy a few hours of freedom." There was something different about Laura, a spark in her eyes, a new strength in her posture, as if a younger, braver version had emerged from years of shadows. "Why did you come?" Elizabeth asked softly. "To tell you that whatever you choose today, you won't be alone." Laura took her daughter's hands. "And to finally tell you a story I should have shared long ago." For the next 20 minutes, Elizabeth listened while her mother revealed a self she'd never imagined. The idealistic young woman who'd met Richard when he was just an ambitious rancher's son. The fiancé who believed his promises to build something that would help entire communities. The wife who slowly watched her husband change as power and wealth accumulated. "I lost myself along the way," Laura confessed, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Every time I questioned his methods, he grew colder, more distant. So I learned to stay quiet, to look away. Told myself it was for your future." She squeezed Elizabeth's hands harder. "But now I see it was cowardice, and you deserved better from me." "Don't say that," Elizabeth protested, her own heart aching. "You always loved me, always protected me." "Love isn't enough if it doesn't come with courage," Laura replied sadly. "I should have shown you there are lines that can't be crossed, no matter the success or family name." A thoughtful silence settled before Laura continued. "I knew people in this town, before I married your father. Martha was younger then, but already had that same kindness in her eyes. Why never tell me about this place? Because it represented the part of me I had to bury to survive beside the man your father became." Laura gazed out at the waking town. "And maybe because I was afraid if you saw this simpler, more honest world, you'd also see the emptiness in ours." The words hit Elizabeth deep. This wasn't just about going home or staying. It was about choosing the kind of person, the kind of life she wanted. 8:50. Time was running out. "What happens if I don't go back?" Elizabeth asked. "Your father will follow through, at least at first," Laura answered honestly. "Cut you off from accounts, your position at the company, try to force you back through necessity if not choice." "And you? What happens to you?" Laura gave a sad but determined smile. "I'm finding my own courage too. I have money set aside in my name. Not much, but enough to start over if I must. Your father isn't the only one who can make plans." The revelation stunned Elizabeth. Her seemingly dependent mother had quietly prepared her own escape at a knock. Martha with breakfast for two, eyes widening at the sight of Laura. "Been a long time," Martha said warmly. "You haven't changed, just aged a bit, and I hope wiser," Laura replied, embracing her old friend. Mother and daughter shared the simple breakfast in contemplative silence. Through the window, Elizabeth watched Jake crossing the square, helping dismantle festival structures. Her heart leapt at the sight of him. A man who'd lost everything yet kept his integrity and ability to begin again. 9:00 a.m. A large black SUV pulled up in front of the inn, right on time. "Time to decide," Laura murmured, squeezing her daughter's hand one last time. Elizabeth stood, a strange calm replacing the past day's anxiety. Somehow, deep down, she'd known her choice since seeing the empty field where Jake's home once stood. They descended the stairs together. Martha waited in the small lobby. "Driver's here," she informed. "I know," Elizabeth said. "Could you ask him to wait just a minute? I have something to do first." Without waiting, she walked out to the square, straight to where Jake worked. He looked up as she approached, a question in his eyes. "My father sent a car," she said simply. "It's waiting now." Jake nodded slowly, expression carefully neutral. "I see. Come to say goodbye. No, Elizabeth answered, the word feeling like freedom. I came to tell you I'm staying. Jake's face transformed, caution giving way to surprise, then cautious joy. You're sure? You know what that means. It means starting over, learning to live differently, fighting for the truth even when it's hard. She smiled, feeling lighter than she had since childhood. And yes, I'm sure. The smile that broke across Jake's face was like sunrise, slow, warm, radiant. Wordlessly, he held out his hand. She took it, fingers intertwining. Together they walked back to the inn where Laura watched from the porch, proud tears streaming down her face. Mom, this is Jake, Elizabeth introduced. Jake, my mother Laura. It's an honor, he said respectfully. Laura studied him a long moment before answering. The pleasure's mine. Thank you for showing my daughter what I never had the courage to. The driver cleared his throat discreetly beside the SUV. Miss Elizabeth, we're on a tight schedule. You can go back without me, she said firmly. Tell my father I made my choice. As the vehicle pulled away, carrying the last tie to her old life, Elizabeth felt both fear and exhilaration. The road ahead would be hard. She knew her father wouldn't accept defeat easily, that there might be retaliation against the town. But beside Jake, with her mother's quiet support and surrounded by a community already beginning to feel like home, she felt ready for any challenge. What happens now? She asked no one in particular as the four of them watched the SUV disappear down the dusty road. Now, Jake said softly, we start building something new, something based on truth and respect. It won't be easy, Laura warned. I know your father. He'll fight with every weapon he has. And we'll fight with the truth, Elizabeth replied with newfound confidence. I have access to records, questionable transactions. We can gather enough proof to legally challenge what he did to Jake's family and others. A real David and Goliath fight, Martha remarked. And we know how that story ends. Jake smiled at I in that moment under the morning sun bathing the little square. Something new was born. Not just an unlikely love between two different worlds, but a cause, a purpose, a chance to right past wrongs and build a fairer future. Elizabeth looked at their joined hands, one raised for luxury and power, the other shaped by hard work and resilience. So different, yet perfectly complementary, just like them. The road would be long and full of obstacles, but for the first time in her life she felt exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. And that, more than any wealth or privilege, was true freedom. Fim da histria, col tutto junto e vi dar examinament 1 ora de leitura.